Humans have constantly been in pursuit of a higher consciousness. Life as we know it has typically been perceived to exist based upon that which we can digest through our senses and our minds. Death, which is typically perceived to no longer be accompanied by our senses and our minds, is a question that's being raised by Dr. Sam Parnia of the Cornell University and the University of Southampton. Dr. Parnia has headed a 3-year global study for the Newer Foundation by the name of the AWARE Project, Awareness During Resuscitation. It's the first study being launched by the Human Consciousness Project, a multidisciplinary collaboration of international scientists and physicians who have joined forces to study the relationship between mind and brain during clinical death.
That's absolutely right. What we have set up now is the world's largest study, really looking at what happens to the mind and the brain during cardiac arrest when people have died. Because ultimately what we realize as a group of researchers is that we're not just dealing with brain cells, we're dealing with human beings. And what we found is that people who've died consistently, at least 10 to 20% of people who were then brought back to life, will tell us that they had consciousness present, that their mind and consciousness was working, and a proportion of them will tell us that they're able to see doctors and nurses working on them as if they're looking from above.
During the AWARE study, physicians have used the latest technology to study brain and consciousness during cardiac arrest. At the same time, they will also be testing the validity of out-of-body experiences and claims to have been able to see and hear during cardiac arrest through the use of randomly generated and hidden images that are not visible unless from a specific vantage point.
The images vary. What we can then do is simply put an image on this side that's only visible if you're looking from the ceiling down. That's why you can't explain away people's experiences as being a dream, because you can't dream or have a hallucination if you're flatlined on your brain.
We've also had a visit with Dr. Jeffery Long, a radiation oncologist. He's a co-author of Evidence of the Afterlife and co-founder of EndEarth, Near-Death Experience Research Foundation. Dr. Long has long served on the board of directors at ISLANDS for the International Association for Near-Death Studies and has been actively involved in the NDE research.
Nearly half of people who have a near-death experience will have an out-of-body state. We'll call it an OBE. During that time, their consciousness rises up, and usually from an area above their body, they can observe both their own body, often frantic resuscitation efforts, and other earthly ongoing events going on, again at a time that they're often clinically dead. Part of my study was to look at 617 near-death experiences. We found 287 of those near-death experiences involved observations of earthly, everyday events at this time when they were unconscious or dead. And to my considerable surprise, we found that an unbelievable 97.6% of the time, every observation that they were making, everything that they shared in our survey in their narrative form was realistic. In other words, there was nothing that seemed unrealistic about their observations of earthly events to either the near-death experiencer or to myself personally looking over their narrative.
We will also meet with Dr. Eric Harrison, who will show us how all this has been made possible through cooling of the core temperature of the human body to achieve cardiac hypothermia. A man who has made it a mission in his life to bring the latest advancements in cardiac hypothermia, a procedure that raises the survival rate for cardiac and stroke patients from 7% to as high as 70 or 80%.
Oh, it's dramatic. I mean, we could expect 20-something% of patients to go home, and now we've got places reporting 80% going home. So it's very dramatic. It's one of the biggest thing that's happened in cardiac resuscitation since CPR and defibrillation, and pre-hospital care. So it's a biggie. It's one of the big four, I would say. So.
His astounding dedication to assist the community has led to the filming of the certified training course, and we'll show you how these new technologies can cool the conscious patients and achieve hypothermia internally prior to reperfusion.
Doug, tell me about what the current FDA-approved applications are, and then what are the research applications of the intercooled device?
Well, all of the therapeutic cooling that's being done in the country is mostly being done for cardiac arrest right now. That is a standard of care essentially all across the United States. However, it is actually not cleared by the FDA because nobody to date has actually conducted a large randomized trial to generate the data required. But cooling protocols are in place in pretty much all of the hospitals across the United States for cardiac arrest cooling. That means patients are cooled post-resuscitation after they've had a cardiac arrest. And that therapy consists of cooling the patient as quickly as possible, keeping them cold for 24 hours, and then rewarming them over 24 hours.
We've also hit the streets for a fiesta that is over 50 years old, the fiesta of the near-death experience. Processions of thousands of survivors who gather to celebrate and share their profound experiences.
Está catalogada por el periódico The Guardian como la segunda más rara del mundo. Imposible imaginar cómo será la primera.
Thank you for joining us in our journey. And now that you've seen the facts from the scientists and years of research and studies, come to your own conclusions. But bear in mind the fact that people who have seen these things have a tendency to focus more on their own life and their personal journey. And now it's time to raise these questions with every major religion. The results that we have found will astonish you.